Passport.
Oh yeah, this would be the West Coast version. I went to New York in 1997, and I told them that I'll be the West Coast version of Rapid Delight superhero game. Because y'all they had that Biggie NWA, and I was like, this is my shit. Yeah. All you ladies who see me for dance, come on up. Yeah.
I'm Burnett. Out front tonight, the wall's closing in on President Donald Trump. We're learning tonight that special counsel Bob Mueller interviewed someone who could hold the keys to Trump's inner circle, someone who has been close to Trump's longtime friend and campaign advisor Roger Stone for decades. She is known as the Manhattan Madame, and tonight, 4 sources tell CNN that Kristen Davis sat for a voluntary interview with Bob Mueller's team this week. Now, Davis could be crucial. She has a personal and a professional relationship with Stone. She knows a lot. And when it comes to Trump, Roger Stone is tight.
We talk politics. Beyond that, I'm not going to characterize it, because if I do, then that indiscretion would most likely mean that those conversations would end. The president has to have confidence that he can talk politics or policy with a friend of 40 years without it appearing on the front page of the newspaper.
A friend of 40 years, bragging about keeping President Trump's secrets. But will he keep them if Mueller finally closes a trap on Stone? Because we're also learning of another big Mueller blow to Stone tonight, a judge ordering another person close to Stone to appear before the Mueller grand jury. That's former Stone associate Andrew Miller. He fought a subpoena from Mueller. The judge, though, said no. So Andrew Miller will appear. And as Mueller shines those bright lights closer and closer to Roger Stone's, today, Trump's former campaign chairman faced another bruising day in court. Prosecutors slamming Paul Manafort for a 4th day, showing he lied to his accountants, trying to prove he lied on his taxes. Lies, lies, and more lies. That is the story from prosecutors. And let's be clear, Roger Stone and Paul Manafort were not, quote, coffee boys, like Team Trump has tried to dismiss another Trump aide who pleaded guilty in the Russia investigation. These 2 men were equals to Trump, men that he publicly praised and prized.
Well, Roger Stone's been very nice. He thinks I'm doing fantastically.
That's Mr. Manafort, who's, by the way, respected man. He's a respected man.
So will Stone or Manafort flip on Trump? All right, Evan Perez was in the Manafort courtroom today. He's out front. And Evan, you've been there every day this week. You say you heard some of the most damaging testimony today.
Yes, Aaron. I think we've heard some of the most damaging testimony, in particular from Paul Manafort's accountants. And one of them in particular, she is Cindy Laporta. She got an immunity deal from the special counsel in order to testify. And really what she represents is an insider. She's someone who, according to prosecutors and according to her own testimony today in court, she was involved in the conspiracy to help Paul Manafort move some of this money from these offshore accounts in Cyprus that he did not declare to the IRS, and help some of that money move back, and then fudge the numbers so that he could lie on his income taxes. In particular, there was one part of the testimony in which she described a loan for $900,000. I think we have some of the exhibits that the government showed in court today for a $900,000 loan in 2014. And according to her own testimony, this money was supposed to be classified as income, but by classifying it as a loan, it allowed Manafort to reduce his taxes by as much as $500,000 for that year. So here we have, for the first time, someone who's an insider explaining exactly how this conspiracy works. We know that the government has charged him with bank fraud, with obviously with tax fraud, and so what this is building towards, obviously, Aaron, is that they're going to now move on to some of the bigger witnesses. Rick Gates, who was also part of this conspiracy, according to the government, his testimony obviously is going to be a very fiery thing, because we expect that Paul Manafort's lawyers are going to try to attack him as someone who lied to the FBI. He's pleaded guilty to lying to the FBI. So expect some of those fireworks to happen next week.
All right. Thank you very much, Evan. Of course, there's also that personal and emotional. You're talking about Gates and Manafort, right? Friends, mentor-mentee relationship, sort of father-son, some have even described it as. So that is going to be fireworks. Now, and I want to turn to the Roger Stone news. So we're talking about Kristen Davis, right? The Manhattan madam sitting down with the special counsel. Alex Marquardt has this part of the story. And Alex, Kristen Davis has been brought in. She's now sat down this week, we've learned, to talk to Bob Mueller. And the big question, of course, is what she might know about Stone and his dealings with Russia, right? Whether it be WikiLeaks or Guccifer 2.0.
Right. The big question is how she's really connected to this Russia probe. She is yet another unbelievably colorful character who's been caught up in Robert Mueller's web. And what we do know, Aaron, is that this interview took place this week. It was on Wednesday, and it was voluntary. Now, what's less clear is exactly what the special counsel's office is looking for. So sources have told CNN that they do want Kristen Davis to testify before a grand jury. And that's a real indication that they may be zeroing in on Davis's close friend, Roger Stone, who, of course, has advised Donald Trump for decades. Now, Davis, who, as you've noted, is known as the Manhattan Madam, and Roger Stone, they've also been close for years. She ran a high-end prostitution ring here in New York, and then she went to jail as part of the prostitution scandal that took down Governor Eliot Spitzer. It was after that stint behind bars that she then paired up with Stone, who advised her campaign for New York governor in 2010 when she ran on a platform of legalizing marijuana and prostitution. Stone later put Davis on his own payroll. She helped him with clerical work, sending emails and setting up media interviews. And then there's another twist. Stone is the godfather of Davis's son, but at least 2 witnesses have also been asked whether he's actually the father, which appears to have annoyed Stone. In a new statement, Stone has said, Kristen Davis is a longtime friend and associate of mine. I am the godfather to her 2-year-old son. She knows nothing about Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other impropriety related to the 2016 election, which I thought was the subject of this probe. I understand she appeared voluntarily. I am highly confident she will testify truthfully if called upon to do so. Aaron, we've also reached out to Davis's lawyer and the special counsel's office. They have not responded. Aaron.
All right, thank you very much, Alex. It is just an incredible cast of characters that were actually not in a reality show, but in real life when you hear some of these things. Okay, out front now, Frank Bruni, New York Times columnist, Laura Coates, former federal prosecutor, and Shan Wu, former federal prosecutor and former lawyer for Rick Gates. So, Frank and Laura, let me start with you both because you're here with me. The wall's closing in, Frank, obviously on some very close people to the president. Grim news from Manafort, you heard Evan say, the most damning day of testimony so far for him. Roger Stone, you've got this woman testifying and another associate now losing his fight is going to have to testify as well. Yet Trump was silent.
Maybe because of all of that. But I mean, Trump being silent one day just means Trump's going to be noisy the next. It's never a consistent trend line.
Yeah.
But it is interesting to wonder about that silence and wonder what's going through his head. There's no way the president isn't noticing this. There's no way he's not worried to some degree. Now, he may believe they have nothing to say about him. Mm-hmm. He may know differently. But either way, it becomes clear to him. And this is a day that really reminds him of that, just how thorough and just how wide-ranging the Mueller investigation is.
So, Laura, here's the thing. When we talk about Roger Stone, I remember several months ago having lunch with Michael Cohen. And he said to me, well, they've never called me. They've never talked to me. And I remember almost kind of jokingly saying, well, that means you're toast. It's sort of like, but that was, in fact, what the case was in terms of what he, they were going to be looking into him. Stone is the same way. Yeah, not talking to Stone, but we've got Kristen Davis, other people close to him, Sam Nunberg, Michael Caputo. Now you've got this guy Andrew Miller. They're all going to be talking. What does this mean for Stone?
It means, of course, that Mueller's probe is thriving on the anxiety and uncertainty of all these things. Remember, his directive is not simply to look at the campaign-related collusion. Rosenstein said if he comes across any other criminal activity in the course of that investigation, he need not ignore it like a big pile of cocaine as he goes to search for a homicide in the house. He can look at the actual coffee table as well. And so just as the situation with Paul Manafort, with Michael Cohen, it may now be that perhaps Donald Trump is silent because a target is not him in that capacity. And everyone is closer and closer to Roger Stone with the WikiLeaks, with the Sam Nunberg interview, talking about the comments about talking to him. Maybe it's zoning it as also on him as well, and he has reason and cause to be nervous.
I mean, Shem, when you add it all up, does Stone get indicted here? Is that what this is building towards?
It certainly is building in that direction, and for someone like Stone, not being spoken to is definitely a bad sign, as you pointed out about Cohen. It's a little bit like musical chairs. You don't want to be the last person out there, and they've spoken to everybody else. You'll have nothing to offer them, and they'll have all the information they need on you already. So that's definitely going to be a problem for him.
So, Frank, then there's Manafort today, as Evan said. The most damning day so far. His own accountants given immunity because you're obviously not going to work as an accountant again once you admit that you lied for your client or knew your client was lying, which they did. They say he lied on his taxes. One of them saying her firm helped him do it to falsify these documents about the loan that could have cut his taxes by $500,000, as Evan was reporting. We are going to see Manafort's actual tax returns. Okay. Which may
Unlike someone
remind
else,
many
right?
Americans that we have not seen Donald Trump's.
Exactly. No, and it is impossible not to wonder if Americans who are tuned into this trial, and it's probably fewer of them than we think, if they're not going to be struck by that same irony. It's also interesting the accountant admitted that she falsified things. Something else really interesting is going on in court today, which is all of these people who worked on Manafort's taxes are being asked who was in charge. Was it Rick Gates or Paul Manafort? Because the prosecution is anticipating the defense that no, these are mistakes that Rick Gates made, and Paul Manafort is being falsely blamed for them. All of these people are saying, no, Paul Manafort was the man in charge, and that's a very specific, deliberate question the prosecutors are asking.
They're putting to everybody. And Laura, the Washington Post saying that the lead attorney for Manafort was talking to people during the break, and his defense was, quote, nobody intending to violate the law would leave the evidence around for his accountant to find it.
That sounds a lot like Rudy Giuliani making a comment that no one commits a crime in broad daylight or in the open. It sounds, very ironic. And in fact, that's exactly what actually happened here, according to the prosecution's case. And in fact, if you know you're going to have a complicit accountant, which in fact this person was, to draft that fake letter, to get that loan and falsify the documents, then certainly you would leave the evidence and the breadcrumbs for that person to find. And I think it's just completely ridiculous for a jury to be expected. It's not sequestered. That may not buy this scapegoating tactic of that you're blaming it all on your minion, that also everyone is against you and you had no knowledge this is going on. Everyone out of the goodness of their heart and against their licenses in their state decided, I'm going to help you commit a crime just because I don't want you to not have
it.
And it also doesn't add up
if he's trying to say, I didn't know I was doing it. But the accountant is admitting that they did it on his behalf, that they did falsify and lie. So you're now supposed to believe the accountant actually didn't come back to you and say, hey, just check and this doesn't add up, right? That the accountant would take that all on themselves. It doesn't add up.
It doesn't add up. And so what you saw the first day of the trial was they're trying to say, listen, all this is crazy, this lavish spending. Now we're getting to the meat of the bone that says, why did he need these loan documents? And who was helping him? And the meat of the matter is, did you commit fraud? It's a document-heavy case. It's not one about he said versus she said. It's not he versus he. It's either the documents speak the truth or they don't. Either you were $3 million up, like you said, or you were $1 million in the hole.
just in control. See, like this is me. Awesome. But see, the first thing I'm looking at your face is thinking, I hope you're fitted. It's my heritage. You like the booty. Don't know about it, but I know about this kind of thing. So I get the great start saying, and this whole set, I'm a ton of girls that call them, I'm a many, I'm a million, they will go so late. It is to be rad, so wet, like the way we do, one of our people, take it. We're riding, it's by the way, on my back. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's a luxury. You're not 16. This is the part to see. It's my man. I'm not a follow up. I like to be smooth and my gorilla. It's super rhyme. What's the law? Together. This is what was the rule. But I'm in cool. It's a cool. Not two. This is a lot. See it. Walk no more. Look at me. Walk no more. Let's get this side. Yeah, you know that. Stand on my big blue. Let's grow. Like a lady. And watch the apple. You know what's funny? I still believe in the baby. All about this story. If you get a little, I ask a fool. Looking at the little one that you I got a good seat. And like Daddy, she got a fancy. Two princes and prince. She killed the rest. Because in mine, she's the best. Chopping all over me just like a lady. She's never been scared of me. Sounds so addictive. Maybe you got it. She's so singing on me. No matter what the work. All I have is like that. On this other side going, little girls lying, that's what I'm saying now. Don't be wrong, so you gotta do the thing on the shit. Be like, you know, that you go to the Jackson, off to relax, they're like me. Then I start packing full of shit. I'm the shit. Over my tip, over like a kid. Do it yesterday, I see the girls in there, nigga, hey. Girls see old, it goes till I get the good road, beat the hoe. Got it all like a no deal. That's the deal. Forget how you feel. You gonna really gotta hang on the deal. That's the title. You got you do just go to the show. Yo, let's keep moving, I know you know. And if you know, it's gonna hit you wrong. Just keep ready to be funny. Give me enough to put on. But when I'm doing this, you gotta go and work. It's super rough. Now she might be so mean with it. But it's bigger to you. That's the way it is. When I'm ready to when I'm living together, when I'm living, that's what I'm with me all the time. With it, and the other side. From the side to that, that's why. I'm a nigga with an up the ass. Something you don't have. Go ahead and take it. I know you want to ask. Always good. And if I'm speaking, I'm trying to told you I need to go. I was talking to me like speaking. I can't go off. Go to the field. This is half. So proud. Oh, yeah. Then I'm better than this. And this is death of it. Like I'm a sword. You're a sword, man. You're never fucking over there. You play sorrow. You're not. You're the first thing. Oh, yeah.